When I first laid eyes on Crescent Ridge Estates, I felt I'd discovered a suburban paradise. The neighborhood sprawled across gentle hills, lined with neat sidewalks and manicured lawns. A modern arch at the entrance bore the words, Crescent Ridge Estates, forward-thinking community. This wasn't just a boastful slogan. Crescent Ridge Estates prided itself on eco-friendly initiatives. They had a community solar array, a robust recycling program, and, most unusually, 3 sleek wind turbines installed on a communal greenbelt, feeding clean energy back into the local grid. Neighbors touted how these turbines set them apart from typical developments. High-tech, yet aesthetically pleasing, they exemplified a progressive spirit. I, Daniel Price, had moved here for that very atmosphere, one that blended modern living with environmental responsibility. Although I led a quiet life, I had connections to the greater scientific community, counting among my acquaintances the famous Dr. Joanna Earle, a celebrated environmental scientist who advanced sustainable energy projects worldwide. For now, no one in Crescent Ridge Estates knew of this connection. I was simply the new homeowner who admired the wind turbines from a distance. However, within days of settling in, I noticed a certain tension swirling around the turbines. A stiff-lipped, middle-aged woman named Brenda Farnley, commonly referred to as Karen behind her back, was the treasurer of the local homeowners association, HOA. She roamed the streets in a golf cart, clipboard ever present, scanning for violations. Her introduction to me was laced with forced politeness. I'm Brenda Farnley. People call me Karen. I manage finances and compliance for Crescent Ridge Estates. We have high standards here. I trust you've read our covenants thoroughly. I gave a polite nod, trying to keep it brief. She seemed more interested in scolding neighbors over minor aesthetic details than praising the community's progressive ethos. Rumors soon reached me that Karen disliked the wind turbines, calling them ugly monstrosities. At first, I dismissed that as typical HOA fussiness, but I couldn't have guessed how far she was willing to go. Her sabotage campaign would soon threaten not only the turbines, but also the entire neighborhood's power and ecological well-being. Crescent Ridge Estates had installed the turbines years before I arrived. After a contentious but ultimately successful vote, residents recognized that wind energy, though unusual in a suburban setting, reduced their carbon footprint. They took pride in how each household's electricity bill shrank, thanks to local generation feeding the municipal grid. On windy days, the slender white blades spun gracefully, a subtle hum drifting on the breeze. Families sometimes walked out to the greenbelt to watch them in motion. As I strolled around in my first week, neighbors eagerly shared the backstory. One mother recalled, "We had heated debates initially, some worried about noise or property values, but we found the turbines quite harmonious. My kids love them, calling them energy fans." Another older resident boasted that the HOA's pioneering approach drew national attention from environmental groups. "We've set a model for other neighborhoods," she said with pride. Yet, in the midst of such positivity, I picked up on an undercurrent of friction. People whispered about how Karen had opposed the turbines from day one. She described them as eyesores that ruined the community's traditional aesthetic. But the board had overruled her. Over time, she kept complaining that the turbines caused flicker shadows or infrasound that disturbed her. Official noise measurements, however, consistently showed they were within acceptable limits. Now, with the community thoroughly embracing these green machines, Karen found herself a solitary malcontent. Some neighbors suspected she wanted them dismantled entirely. Still, I assumed the turbines were safe from her. After all, they were a major selling point for prospective buyers, and any attempts to remove them would meet fierce resistance. Little did I realize that Karen's cunning was matched only by her determination. She had been quietly plotting ways to undermine the turbine's success, hoping a catastrophic failure or public scandal might justify removing them. This escalated to covert acts of vandalism that soon darkened the cheerful, eco-friendly aura of Crescent Ridge Estates. Within a month of my moving in, the first sign of trouble arose. One bright afternoon, as a stiff breeze swept across the greenbelt, the second wind turbine abruptly ground to a halt, blades locked. Residents who had grown accustomed to the turbines spinning daily found it eerie to see one of them stuck while the others whirred steadily. The HOA's maintenance contractor arrived to check it. They discovered that an essential lubrication line had been severed inside the turbine's mast. Oddly precise tool marks suggested it wasn't a random defect, but sabotage. The contractor, perplexed, reported this to the HOA board. Karen responded with feigned shock, insisting it was probably metal fatigue. The contractor shook his head. Metal fatigue wouldn't cause a clean cut in a lubrication line. Later that week, the same turbine's control panel was tampered with. Wires were yanked out, the circuit board scratched. Again, it looked like deliberate vandalism. Now the second turbine was offline indefinitely. The community grew concerned. Who would sabotage an eco-friendly power source? Karen posted a notice in the HOA newsletter, claiming, "We suspect outside vandals." She demanded additional security patrols around the greenbelt, hinting that perhaps unsavory teenagers or criminals had come from a neighboring area to wreak havoc. She never once admitted that someone local might be behind it. Privately, though, neighbors wondered. The turbines were well inside Crescent Ridge estates. It was improbable that random outsiders had targeted them so specifically. Meanwhile, the first and third turbines continued to function. But the sabotage stirred up tensions. People worried that if the vandal wasn't caught, more damage would come. The board set up a volunteer watch schedule at night, though it was patchy. For me, the pattern was obvious. Whoever hated the turbines was taking advantage of minimal security. Karen, being the most outspoken critic, naturally drew suspicion, though no direct evidence tied her to the sabotage. So I kept quiet but stayed vigilant. If more sabotage occurred, we'd need stronger proof. Maybe we could catch the perpetrator in the act. Beyond the sabotage, I noticed Karen began sowing seeds of doubt about the turbines among residents. In casual conversation, she pointed out any minor inconvenience, like a flicker of shadow on a yard at a certain hour or the slight hum in high wind, and portrayed it as a serious disturbance. She circulated flyers titled "The Hidden Dangers of Wind Turbines," citing dubious internet sources about alleged health issues. Some neighbors who never before complained began to wonder if the turbines could be harming them. She also pressed the HOA board to vote on a new regulation, turbine operation hours, claiming that limiting the turbines to certain times would respect everyone's comfort. A few gullible residents found her arguments persuasive. However, the majority recognized that turning turbines off for hours each day undermined the entire point of generating continuous green energy. The board tabled her proposal, but the tension remained. Meanwhile, the second turbine's repairs were slow, as the sabotage had caused extensive damage. The contractor's backlog meant it could be weeks before the replacement parts arrived. During a board meeting, Karen cynically noted how the community's energy offset had dropped, causing higher bills again. "Isn't it unfortunate that these turbines break so easily?" she said with a theatrical sigh. Her smug tone enraged those who suspected she'd orchestrated the breakdown. I decided to intervene discreetly, discussing with a few supportive neighbors the possibility of installing hidden cameras around the wind turbine area. They agreed. If sabotage was indeed an inside job, we needed evidence. A small group chipped in to buy covert trail cameras with night vision. We set them up among shrubs near the turbines, out of plain sight. If the culprit struck again, we hoped to catch them on film. However, the cameras would only help if sabotage continued, which we dreaded. Meanwhile, the mood at Crescent Ridge Estates darkened, overshadowed by suspicion. The once proud symbol of sustainability had become a target for malice, all because of one person's vanity and obsession with neighborhood aesthetics. While investigating these incidents, I kept in contact with an old friend and colleague, Dr. Joanna Orl, a renowned environmental scientist who specialized in renewable energy systems. She had worked internationally, helping communities integrate wind and solar with minimal impact. When I explained the sabotage, she was appalled. "That's dreadful. People sabotage good technology just to maintain some misguided sense of visual perfection," she lamented. We discussed how to handle the situation. She offered her expertise to examine the turbines or consult with the community. Knowing her credentials, I realized an official visit might help dispel misinformation about wind turbine health hazards that Karen was spreading. If we arranged a public seminar with Dr. Earl, the neighborhood could hear from a globally respected authority. That alone might quell the swirling rumors. However, I worried that Karen would try to block or undermine such a visit. So we decided to keep it under wraps until the right moment. Dr. Earl and I planned quietly. She'd come to town soon, examine the sabotage or suspicious details. If we found conclusive proof that Karen was behind it, Dr. Earl's voice would carry weight in pressuring local authorities to act. Our secret plan gave me hope that we could end the sabotage and exonerate the turbines. In the meantime, small acts of sabotage continued. The third turbine briefly went offline when someone jammed its rotor locking mechanism with a wedge of metal. Maintenance staff discovered it before major damage was done. The hidden cameras caught only partial glimpses, someone wearing dark clothing, face obscured by a hood, scurrying away. The image was too grainy to positively identify them, but the figure's silhouette looked suspiciously like Karen's height and build. It wasn't concrete evidence yet, but it reinforced our suspicions. All the while, Karen maintained her outwardly polite facade. She kept patrolling the neighborhood in her golf cart, handing out petty violation notices for trivial matters like a trash bin left out too long or a mailbox a shade off from the approved color. But behind that veneer, she stealthily chipped away at the turbines. If we didn't intervene soon, the entire project could be ruined. One fateful evening, the sabotage escalated drastically. A fierce wind gusted through Crescent Ridge estates, prime conditions for the turbines to generate maximum power. Residents expected a productive night of clean energy. Instead, around 9 p.m., the neighborhood lights flickered ominously. Within minutes, the entire grid segment fed by the turbines went dark, plunging dozens of homes into blackout. Pandemonium ensued. Families scrambled for flashlights, some worried about refrigerated food spoiling or medical devices losing power. Meanwhile, the municipal utilities emergency line was flooded with calls. An urgent text alert from the HOA declared a power disruption possibly linked to wind turbine malfunction. I raced outside, seeing only a few houses with backup generators. Flickers of candlelight shone from windows. Some neighbors ventured out with flashlights, heading toward the greenbelt. As I joined them, the wind roared, making it difficult to hear. Then I spotted it. The first and third turbines had violently shut down, their safety systems triggered by some catastrophic failure. The second one, still unrepaired from earlier sabotage, remained offline. From the utility substation near the greenbelt, faint sparks danced in the gloom. Someone had tampered with the main connection, causing an overload that tripped the entire local circuit. A maintenance crew arrived quickly, their truck's headlights illuminating the substation. They discovered cut cables, scorched fuse boxes, and battered components. This is no random short circuit. Someone deliberately messed with our lines, the lead technician muttered in disbelief. The cameras? We'd angled them mostly at the turbines themselves, not the substation, so it was unclear if we had footage. Furious neighbors began murmuring about Karen, but we had no proof. She was nowhere in sight. As the crew worked through the night, the utilities systematically restored power, but it took hours. Frustration boiled over. This wasn't just a single turbine sabotage. It was a crippling blow to the entire microgrid arrangement. For me, it was the final straw. If we didn't expose Karen soon, she might orchestrate a total meltdown of our green energy system, potentially injuring someone or causing irreversible damage. In the aftermath of the massive outage, rumors swirled. The HOA board convened an emergency meeting, with Karen disingenuously urging they pause the turbines altogether until a safety investigation concluded. She reasoned that if the system was so fragile, better to scrap it. Some desperate residents, reeling from the blackout, nodded in agreement. Others saw through her manipulative attempt to kill the program for good. I decided it was time to reveal my plan. Standing at the front of the clubhouse meeting room, I cleared my throat, capturing everyone's attention. Neighbors, we're all upset by the sabotage that caused this outage. However, I have good news. I've invited a leading environmental scientist, Dr. Joanna Earl, to visit Crescent Ridge Estates next week. She's internationally recognized for her expertise in wind energy systems. She can inspect the damage, share facts about turbine operations, and help us chart a path forward. A ripple of surprise crossed the room. Ms. Watkins, one of the board members, smiled. Dr. Earl? The same one who consulted on that famous offshore wind farm project. Others murmured excitedly, recalling her name from documentaries. Karen's expression flickered, shifting from annoyance to alarm. She demanded, "Why wasn't the HOA informed earlier? We must approve visitors, especially if they're interfering with official matters." I stood firm. She's my personal acquaintance. I invited her for an informal professional opinion, at no cost to the HOA. This is well within my rights as a resident. We all want answers to these sabotage incidents. Dr. Earl can help clarify what's happening, including whether the turbines truly pose any hazards or if the hazard is from malicious tampering. Several neighbors clapped softly, relieved at the prospect of an impartial authority figure. Karen's face tightened in fury. She spat. We'll see if she's an authority or just another busybody with an agenda. But behind her harsh words, I detected fear. Perhaps she realized Dr. Earl's expertise could expose Karen's role in sabotage. The cat-and-mouse game was nearing its climax. Leading up to Dr. Earl's visit, I coordinated with the local utility staff, the wind turbine maintenance crew, and a handful of supportive neighbors to compile a thorough briefing. We gathered maintenance logs detailing the unusual damage patterns to the turbines, forensic analysis from the big outage, showing that cables were intentionally severed at precise points, surveillance footage from the hidden cameras. While none showed a clear shot of Karen's face, we had glimpses of a figure matching her build near the turbines on multiple nights. Samples of tool marks on the damaged turbine components, suggesting consistent use of a particular cutting instrument. We also had the second turbine's cut lubrication line, which the contractor carefully stored as evidence. The sabotage was undeniable, though the question remained. Could we prove Karen herself orchestrated it? Karen continued publicly pushing for an official shutdown of the turbines, citing ongoing danger. She wrote scathing messages in the HOA newsletter about Dr. Earl's upcoming visit, calling it a stunt and urging residents to reject outside meddling. But the board, except for one or two of Karen's cronies, recognized that Dr. Earl's perspective could only help. They politely asked Karen to tone down her language. She refused, spouting more fear-mongering about catastrophic turbine collapses or electrical fires. Meanwhile, I arranged lodging for Dr. Earl at a local inn. She would arrive in 2 days, accompanied by a small research assistant. Our plan was straightforward. Dr. Earl would conduct a thorough on-site inspection of all 3 turbines, the substation, and the Sabotage's modifications. Then we'd hold a community meeting in the clubhouse for her to present findings. The moment of truth was fast approaching. I sensed Karen would not sit idly by. On the eve of Dr. Earl's arrival, a neighbor spotted Karen lurking near the greenbelt at dusk, accompanied by 2 men who looked like hired muscle, possibly private security or handymen. The neighbor discreetly followed at a distance, but couldn't see exactly what they did. Fearing more sabotage, they called me. By the time I reached the site, the trio had vanished. All was quiet, but a sinister feeling crept in. If Karen had one final trick to discredit the turbines, or Dr. Earl, it might happen soon. I alerted a few watchful residents, urging them to keep an eye out overnight. True enough, around midnight, we heard hammering. Rushing to the greenbelt, we found a newly placed sign hammered into the turf, reading, "Hazardous area. Enter at your own risk." Official order by HOA. Next to it lay a barricade with bright tape, as if declaring the turbines condemned. No official board resolution had done so. This was Karen's brazen attempt to bar Dr. Earl from examining them. We removed the sign and tape. A group of neighbors confronted Karen at her house. She refused to open the door, yelling through the window that the turbines were a danger zone. The fiasco underscored how far she would go. The tension was palpable, yet morning brought a glimmer of hope. Dr. Earl was due to arrive any hour now. When Dr. Joanna Earl stepped out of her rental car in Crescent Ridge Estates, she carried herself with calm confidence. A tall woman in her 50s, short silver hair, and a wise, kindly air. I greeted her warmly, explaining the chaotic situation. She listened intently, her brow furrowing at each new detail of sabotage. In my travels, I've seen communities sabotage renewable energy, but never quite so brazen, she mused. Let's see how we can help. We started with a walking tour of the turbines. Dr. Earl meticulously noted the design specs, scanning for signs of tampering. She recognized the second turbine's parted lubrication line as the work of a deliberate saboteur, not ordinary wear. The substation cable's neat cuts indicated a skilled or well-researched perpetrator. She took photos and jotted in a field notebook. A small group of neighbors, and even a local newspaper reporter, tagged along quietly, eager for her assessment. At one point, we encountered Karen, standing by the greenbelt with arms folded. She fixed Dr. Earl with a piercing glare. So you're the famous scientist here to meddle in our private community affairs. Karen sneered. We didn't invite you. We have everything under control. Dr. Earl responded politely. I'm here at the request of several residents concerned about sabotage. I only want to ensure safe, reliable operation of these turbines, or identify if they're truly hazardous. Karen scoffed. They're hideous mechanical menaces. This fiasco has caused blackouts, put residents at risk. If you're wise, you'll advise removing them altogether. Dr. Earl studied Karen's face thoughtfully. We'll see what the evidence shows, she said, unwavering. Karen stormed away, letting the rest of us continue the inspection. By dusk, Dr. Earl had enough material to form preliminary conclusions. She said quietly to me, all evidence points to coordinated sabotage, not mechanical failure. No question about it. We need to share this at the community meeting tomorrow. If the saboteur is indeed Ms. Farnley, she'll have nowhere to hide once I present these facts. The next evening, the HOA clubhouse filled with anxious residents. Word of Dr. Earl's presence and her upcoming presentation had spread, drawing a large turnout. Even the local TV channel sent a small camera crew. People sought clarity on the sabotage, the risk of future outages, and the truth behind Karen's allegations of turbine dangers. Dr. Earl stood at the front with a laptop and projector. I introduced her briefly, then stepped aside. She began in a calm, authoritative tone. Thank you for welcoming me. I've spent the past day examining your wind turbines, substation, and evidence of damage. I can confirm these turbines are designed robustly and, under normal operation, pose no significant noise, flicker, or safety hazards beyond typical industry standards. The blackouts and breakdowns you experience stem from deliberate interference, tools used to cut lubrication lines, sabotage circuit boards, and sever cables. This sabotage is methodical, not random teenage vandalism. A hush fell over the audience. Dr. Earl advanced slides showing photos of the sabotage. Gasps escaped as each image revealed distinct cut marks, carefully extracted parts, and the jammed rotor mechanism. She also displayed data logs from the control systems, which indicated abrupt tampering at specific times matching suspicious sightings. Then came the key revelation. Hidden camera footage, albeit grainy, capturing a figure near the turbines on nights sabotage occurred. Dr. Earl paused the video, highlighting the silhouette's posture, clothing style, and the presence of a distinctive bag. A communal intake of breath followed. Many recognized Karen's typical stance and shape. Fingers pointed, whispers erupted. Karen stood near the back, face darkening with fury. She tried to interrupt. This is speculation. That silhouette is meaningless. But the crowd rumbled. That's you, Karen. We see your hair, your golf cart in the corner. Dr. Earl closed. Based on my professional assessment, the sabotage has no legitimate engineering rationale. It's a willful act to undermine your clean energy systems. If this continues, the turbines might be irreparably damaged, or further blackouts could occur. I urge swift legal recourse. The room exploded into chatter. Some residents glared at Karen. Others demanded the board remove her from office. One father stood up, voice trembling with anger. You threatened our power supply, Karen, and cost us thousands in repairs. You're done. Another person pointed out the broader environmental harm of setting back local renewable progress. Karen attempted a flustered defense, ranting about lack of proof, and I never gave permission for any camera to film me. But the tide had turned. Even board members stepped away from her, exchanging worried looks about possible liability. The situation was poised for an immediate confrontation. Karen was cornered. As tension escalated, the crowd demanded the HOA board take immediate action. Leonard, the board president, cleared his throat nervously. We must investigate these allegations. But Dr. Earl's evidence is quite compelling. Karen, is there anything you wish to say? Karen's composure snapped. She lunged toward the projector table, trying to yank cables. This is a witch hunt. You can't pin this on me. Those wind turbines ruin our aesthetic. They cause all sorts of problems. We'd be better off without them. A few neighbors rushed to block her from damaging the equipment. She turned on them, face contorted with rage. The local TV camera zoomed in, capturing every second. I did what needed to be done, she shouted. These monstrosities degrade property values, cast shadows on my yard. disturb my evenings with that insufferable hum. None of you cared. Gasps filled the clubhouse. Karen, trembling with fury, inadvertently confessed. Yes, I cut those wires, jammed their rotors, because it's the only way to open your eyes. I'm protecting our community from a flawed technology nobody wants. You all should thank me. The entire room froze, stunned by her admission. Dr. Earl closed her laptop, heartbreak etched on her face. Ms. Watkins, a board member, whispered, "My God, Karen, you cost us so much." People began shouting. Confessed sabotage. Call the police. Someone dialed 911. Karen, realizing she'd incriminated herself, tried to backtrack, but the damage was done. Police arrived swiftly, guided by neighbors. They took statements while Karen fumed, hurling insults at meddling do-gooders. The responding officers recognized the gravity. This was sabotage of critical infrastructure, not just petty vandalism. They placed Karen under arrest on the spot, reading her rights as she still ranted about ugly turbines. Meanwhile, the local TV camera captured everything for posterity, ensuring the region would soon see her meltdown. That dramatic moment closed the meeting. Residents dispersed in a whirl of shock and relief. Karen's stranglehold on the HOA ended in humiliating fashion, hauled away in handcuffs for sabotaging the green energy she so despised. Karen's confession and arrest caused a major stir throughout Crescent Ridge Estates. In the days following, the local TV news looped footage of her meltdown, labeling her the HOA saboteur. Online forums buzzed with commentary. Some found it darkly amusing that she claimed to be protecting the community, while ironically causing blackouts and thousands of dollars in damages. The HOA board, free from Karen's intimidation, held an emergency session to remove her from the treasurer role. They apologized to neighbors for not intervening sooner. They also formed a turbine oversight committee to expedite repairs and strengthen security. Ms. Watkins took a leadership role, promising the turbines will be fully restored, with enhanced monitoring to prevent future vandalism. Meanwhile, Dr. Earl's presence remained a blessing. She volunteered to help the committee draft guidelines for better turbine maintenance, recommended advanced alarm systems, and shared best practices from other communities. She also worked with the local utility to ensure no deeper damage was done to the substation wiring. Her calm, expert guidance reassured residents that the turbines were safe and beneficial. Karen, meanwhile, faced an array of charges: destruction of public utility infrastructure, sabotage, and trespassing, among others. Because the turbines fed power into the municipal grid, interfering with them was considered a serious offense. She also risked civil lawsuits from neighbors who suffered property damage or big appliance failures during the blackout. The possibility of jail time loomed. Though some neighbors pitted her meltdown, the general consensus was that justice needed to be served. The sabotage was too blatant, the potential harm too great, to let her off with a mere slap on the wrist. Freed from Karen's negativity, Crescent Ridge Estates found renewed solidarity, determined to show that green technology and community spirit could triumph over sabotage. With Karen in legal trouble, the sabotage abated. Maintenance crews tackled the backlog of repairs. The second turbine, which had languished offline for weeks, finally received its new lubrication lines and internal components. The third turbine's jammed rotor lock was replaced. Damaged substation cables were upgraded. Dr. Earl observed with satisfaction as each fix advanced. Neighbors joined volunteer brigades to keep watch overnight until a permanent security system was installed. Some even joked about forming a wind turbine fan club, celebrating the day they'd see all three turbines spin in unison again. Ms. Watkins arranged a small neighborhood festival, hoping to re-inspire positivity about their pioneering energy system. Plans included booths about solar cooking, recycling, and kids' craft stations painting miniature turbines. As repairs finished, the day arrived for the turbine's grand reactivation. A crowd gathered near the Greenbelt, Dr. Earl and I among them. Technicians verified that all sabotage was reversed. Ms. Watkins flipped a ceremonial switch at the substation. One by one, the turbines whirred to life, their blades rotating gracefully in the breeze, a powerful symbol of the community's resilience. Cheers erupted. Parents lifted children to watch the spinning blades. The local TV channel filmed the moment. Dr. Earl turned to me with a smile. It's heartening to see the community reclaim this project. Even though one person nearly derailed it, the majority prevailed. I nodded, gratitude welling up. Despite the damage, Crescent Ridge Estates had united around their green energy vision. Meanwhile, Karen's dark cloud had lifted, replaced by renewed hope. Over the following month, Karen remained out on bail, awaiting trial. She was effectively exiled from Crescent Ridge Estates, having surrendered her house to stay with relatives in another county. The HOA board unanimously banned her from association activities, citing legal prerogatives. Freed from her presence, the neighborhood blossomed with a calmer, friendlier vibe. Still, the upcoming trial lingered in everyone's thoughts. The district attorney's office built a strong case, aided by Dr. Earle's expert testimony about the sabotage's severity. The hidden camera footage, partial though it was, combined with Karen's own meltdown confession, spelled near certain conviction. She faced felony charges for tampering with critical infrastructure, plus civil suits from the utility and some residents. The potential restitution alone could be devastating, on top of possible prison time. In a last-ditch effort, Karen's attorney tried claiming she was coerced by an unspecified outside group or that she was mentally unwell from turbine stress. The DA's team found these defenses flimsy. They compiled interviews from Karen's neighbors, quotes from her HOA emails, showing her premeditated attempts to remove the turbines. Her meltdown in the meeting, ironically, had sealed her guilt. Crescent Ridge Estates braced for the final resolution. Dr. Earle prepared a formal affidavit explaining how Karen's sabotage damaged the system. The local media teased coverage of one of the strangest acts of environmental sabotage in suburban history. Many residents planned to attend the trial, determined to see justice done. Meanwhile, the turbines spun serenely, a testament that the community had risen above fear and malice. At last, the day of Karen's trial arrived. The county courthouse was bustling with reporters, curious onlookers, and a contingent from Crescent Ridge Estates. Karen appeared, looking haggard, flanked by her defense attorney. The prosecution laid out the sabotage timeline in painstaking detail, referencing Dr. Earle's analysis of the mechanical tampering, the security footage images, and the meltdown confession. They showed how the sabotage inflicted thousands of dollars in damage, caused blackouts, and endangered public safety. Karen's defense tried painting her as a concerned citizen driven to desperate measures by fear for property values, aesthetic intrusion, and alleged turbine side effects. But cross-examination from the DA dismantled these arguments. The turbines had standard safety certifications, and no official record indicated health hazards. The testimony from the utility staff underscored how her acts nearly sparked dangerous electrical surges. When Dr. Earle took the stand, she calmly explained that sabotage was the only credible explanation for such precise damage patterns. She highlighted that wind turbines operate safely worldwide, and that sabotage, not the turbines themselves, caused the blackouts. Her professional credentials awed the jury. Karen, visibly uneasy, whispered furiously with her attorney. The final blow came when the prosecution replayed the footage of Karen's meltdown in the HOA meeting, along with eyewitness testimonies confirming she tried to physically destroy Dr. Earle's presentation equipment. Her words of self-incrimination echoed. "Yes, I cut those wires. I'm protecting our community from a flawed technology nobody wants." The jury deliberated for only a few hours. They returned a guilty verdict on multiple felony counts: sabotage of critical infrastructure, reckless endangerment, property destruction, and more. Karen's shoulders sagged. The judge set sentencing for the following week, warning she faced serious consequences for endangering neighbors and undermining an essential energy system. When Karen returned for sentencing, the courtroom again filled with Crescent Ridge Estates residents, journalists, and local officials. The judge's tone was stern, reflecting the gravity of her crimes. "Ms. Farnley, you methodically sabotaged an innovative renewable energy system, causing direct harm to your community's power supply and finances. Your actions risked the safety of hundreds, purely to satisfy your personal vendetta. Such disregard for public welfare cannot go unpunished." He imposed a 3-year prison sentence, citing her repeated sabotage, plus additional penalties for the cost of repairs, lost energy production, and disruptions. She also faced restitution lawsuits that would likely force the sale of her property. The judge concluded, In so doing, we send a clear message that infrastructure vital to our collective future, especially clean energy projects, will be protected under the law. Karen, tearful yet defiant, was led away in handcuffs. Some neighbors felt relief, others shook their heads in pity. But no one contested that justice was necessary. The blackouts, sabotage, and public meltdown had overshadowed any mild sympathy. Crescent Ridge Estates could finally move on, free from the sabotage of a single malicious homeowner. With Karen sentenced, the HOA board reclaimed a spirit of cooperation. They poured renewed effort into celebrating the turbines. Ms. Watkins led educational programs at the clubhouse, inviting school groups to learn about renewable energy. The local news broadcast a follow-up story about how the community overcame sabotage to reaffirm their environmental values. Viewers saw images of the gleaming turbines spinning peacefully, accompanied by Dr. Earl's commentary on how neighborhoods can integrate wind power successfully. Crescent Ridge Estates discovered a stronger unity than ever before. Freed from fear and suspicion, neighbors collaborated on further green projects. They added a small orchard near the greenbelt, installed more solar streetlights, and formed a garden club to promote pollinator-friendly landscaping. The turbines remained the iconic centerpiece, each named by local children: Breeze Wing, Skywhirl, and Sunshine. Once scorned by Karen, they became beloved community mascots. Meanwhile, Dr. Earl departed with the satisfaction that her intervention helped uncover the truth. She and I kept in touch, exploring the possibility of replicating Crescent Ridge's model in other suburbs. My own involvement in the fiasco led me to a deeper conviction that grassroots environmental initiatives could withstand sabotage if the community stood united in purpose. Soon after Karen began her prison term, her financial obligations to the HOA, the utility, and neighbors grew insurmountable. The courts seized her property to pay restitution. A local family, enamored by the turbines, purchased her house at auction for a reduced price. They renovated it, removing the fortress-like fences Karen had constructed around the yard. In a twist of cosmic irony, they installed additional solar panels on that property, further symbolizing the shift from Karen's negativity to a clean energy embrace. Neighbors mostly refrained from dancing on her misfortune. Some felt relief that she no longer overshadowed the atmosphere. Others felt sorry that she let bitterness consume her life. The new family fitted the home with more eco-friendly features, openly praising the wind turbines next door. The final vestiges of Karen's hostility vanished under a wave of sustainability improvements. One bright Saturday, Crescent Ridge Estates held a grand Sustainable Future Festival, celebrating the fully repaired turbines, newly minted orchard, and a successful year free of sabotage. Families strolled among booths for composting tips, efficient gardening, and kids' science demonstrations. Dr. Earl, visiting once more as a guest of honor, delivered a short speech lauding the neighborhood's perseverance. "You've proved that community-led green projects can flourish, even under adversity. Sabotage can't stop collective resolve when people value the environment and each other." Applause thundered. The turbines towered above the crowd, blades spinning in the gentle breeze, a symbol of synergy between technology and communal spirit. As the day wound down, I stood at the crest of the greenbelt, gazing at the shining columns that harnessed the wind. My mind drifted to the struggles endured, nights of sabotage, the emotional meeting where Karen confessed, and the final vindication. The triumphant hum of rotating blades reaffirmed the better angels of human nature, outlasting fear and ignorance. Karen, meanwhile, faced her years behind bars, property confiscated, her name forever linked to a bizarre episode of environmental sabotage. If she ever returned to Crescent Ridge Estates, it would be unrecognizable from the place she tried to control. The community had blossomed into an exemplar of forward-thinking energy usage, forging a legacy that overshadowed her destructive impulses. In the end, the final chapter of Crescent Ridge Estates read like a testament to resilience. The dark cloud of sabotage was dispelled by the unwavering belief in sustainable living. Karen had lost everything to her obsession, but the neighborhood emerged stronger, forging a bright, green-powered future built on collaboration, knowledge, and the unstoppable wheel of progress spinning in the wind.